Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of the DAN Show, and happy Friday! Welcome to my breakdown of the Minnesota Vikings. If you're new to my channel, it's got one simple question to ask you. Do you want to talk football? Because if so, you're in the right place. There's this button right around here. See it, see it, see it. Bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. Now, here's how my breakdown of the Minnesota Vikings is going to go. I'm going to talk about what I like about the Vikings. Then I'm going to talk about what I don't like, but stick around to the very end where I break down the Vegas over-under, and if I am going to put action down on the Minnesota Vikings. So, hey, let's start with what I like about the Vikings. The first thing I liked about the Minnesota Vikings is when they brought in Gary Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski to the organization at the beginning of the season. Just kind of recap the Minnesota Vikings. In 2017, they're 13-3. Went to the NFC Championship game, lost to the Eagles, who ended up winning the Super Bowl. Offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur left to take the head coaching job with the New York Giants. Mike Zimmer run team had a personality, great defense, good running game, and that ended up being a 13-3 team. That's a good team, great results. Well, in 2018, they signed Kirk Cousins, and they start throwing the ball all over the field. How do I know this? Well, take a look at the stats. In 2017, they're first in scoring defense, 10th in scoring offense, second in rushing attempts, 21st in passing attempts, and only gave up 24 sacks. In 2018, they're 9th in scoring defense, still top 10 scoring defense, 19th in scoring offense, 27th, 2-7 in rushing attempts, 6th in passing attempts, and they gave up 40 sacks. So they became a passing team, went from 13 wins to 8 wins. So they go back to a running game, and last year they ended up having the 5th best scoring defense, the 8th best scoring offense, and they're 4th in rushing attempts, 30th in passing attempts, and they gave up only 28 sacks. And here's the thing, Kirk Cousins, his statistics are actually pretty similar. The one glaring difference is he threw the ball 162 fewer times, but he only had 4 fewer touchdowns and 4 fewer interceptions. He had 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in 2018, 26 and 6 in 19. He went to the Pro Bowl in 2019, but I can argue they should have went to the Pro Bowl in 2018. 70% completion percentage, 4,298 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Yes, it should have got you to the Pro Bowl, but it didn't because he only won 8 games. So he goes to the playoffs, wins a playoff game. 26-6 touchdown to interception ratio is extremely good. 3,603 yards, not a lot, but keep in mind, you were 30th in passing attempts, but over 69% completion percentage. So even though they ran the ball, when they did throw the ball, they're highly efficient, and this is a staple of a Gary Kubiak offense. This is the same offense that won him Super Bowls in Denver under Mike Shanahan. Watch the San Francisco 49ers. They run a very similar offense. So Gary Kubiak now takes over as offensive coordinator. Kevin Stefanski took the head coaching job in Cleveland, but I'm telling you this because I watched Denver in the 90s, and I watched Gary Kubiak as head coach of Denver and as the head coach of Houston. This is a Gary Kubiak offense. I know Stefanski was called the offensive coordinator, but this was a Kubiak offense. I watched Kubiak for a very long time. He was the quarterback when Mike Shanahan ran the offense. He was the backup quarterback to Elway. But this is the same offense. It's the same offense that's been around since the 90s. And there's certain aspects of it. And I could go on and make this about a 2-hour film about everything that the Shanahan zone read offense is. But I'm just telling you right now, the basics are you run the ball, efficient quarterback play, great defense. Zimmer got back to his core roots. They end up winning a playoff game. They're a team to be dealt with. Second thing I like, and I talked about this when I did my Bills video, but this is one of the best trades I've seen a team make in a very, very long time. The last trade that I thought was this good was the Herschel Walker trade, which at the time people thought the Vikings won that trade. I think the Vikings clearly won this trade, especially when compared to the DeAndre Hopkins trade. And here, by the way, let's compare the two trades. Arizona gets DeAndre Hopkins and a 4th-round pick. All right. Houston gets David Johnson, who's going to cost more, and he was a backup. Arizona didn't even want him. A 2nd-round pick, and they give up a 4th in 2021. Minnesota gives up Diggs and a 7th. They get a 1st, a 5th, a 6th, and a 2021 4th. By the way, DeAndre Hopkins is one of the top 3 wide receivers in the National Football League. Diggs is a top 30 receiver, maybe. He wasn't even the best receiver on the Vikings. That was Adam Thielen. And if you look at Diggs' stats, Thielen was out almost a whole year. This guy should have had a huge year. He really didn't. And that was the thing. Minnesota wanted to get rid of this guy. Just like Arizona wanted to get rid of David Johnson, Minnesota wanted to get rid of Diggs. And here's the thing. Minnesota, one thing about Zimmer, even though he's an old school coach, he does play rookies. And that leads me to the 3rd thing that I like about the Minnesota Vikings is this draft. They had a great draft. First thing, you trade Diggs. That 1st-round pick ends up being Justin Jefferson. If you haven't paid attention to Justin Jefferson or watched LSU play last year, this guy is going to be a stud. Matter of fact, the DAN show predicts that Justin Jefferson will have a better season statistically than Stephon Diggs. By the way, if you're a fantasy football fan, take Justin Jefferson. He's going to have a good year. All right, but take a look here. Justin Jefferson, Jeff Gladney, your 2 first-round picks, they're going to be day 1 starters, and these guys are good players. Zimmer's going to love both these guys. Cousins is going to love Justin Jefferson. Urza Cleveland, there's a good chance that him and Dantzler are eventually going to start. I don't think they're day 1 starters, but they're going to start sometime this year. Dantzler's a guy I had a draft crush on to get him in the 3rd round. This is a good football player. Troy Dye and KJ Osborne are both going to contribute day 1. Dye's going to be like a sub-nickel package. Osborne's going to be a kick punt returner. 7th-round pick, Nate Stanley, quarterback in Iowa. Kind of interesting player. This is a guy who I think will make the team, kind of developmental guy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to be the next Tom Brady, but I did like him, not for all teams, but for what Minnesota's doing. He's going to be a good fit. I think the Vikings are really going to like him. Another player to keep an eye out for is a 4th-round draft pick, James Lynch. He's the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year out of Baylor. I think under Zimmer's really going to like this kid. This kid's a high motor, high effort type of guy. Not really a physical specimen, small for a defensive tackle, but this guy's a high motor type of guy that Zimmer's really going to love. I don't think he's a guy that's going to start for the Vikings, but I think you'll see him play and you'll really see him get after it. And I think that ultimately of all the players that they drafted, this was maybe the best draft in the NFL. But that's definitely up for debate. But just to kind of recap what I like about the Minnesota Vikings is getting back to what Zimmer wants to do, and that's run the ball, great defense, efficient quarterback play, and you get that with Gary Kubiak and his own run scheme. The Diggs trade, just phenomenal trade. You ended up getting at least, I think, 2 day 1 starters, 2 guys who are going to eventually start in 2020. So I think you're going to get 4 starters, and then you're going to get, well, if you want to count kick returner, punt returner starter, 5, and then Troy Dye, a 4th-round pick out of Oregon. He's going to play. He's definitely going to play, and he's going to contribute immediately. He's just not going to be a starter. So Kubiak, great offense, at least the Zimmer type of offense. Diggs trade, great draft. Now, let's talk about what I don't like about the Minnesota Vikings. The first thing I don't like about the Minnesota Vikings is the transition on defense. You're going to have longtime starters Everson Griffin, Linval Joseph, Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, and Mackenzie Alexander leave. Griffin and Rhodes went to the Pro Bowl. Nothing against Xavier Rhodes. I watched him play, and he did not deserve to go to a Pro Bowl. He had a really bad year. He was banged up. This was one of those lifetime achievement type type of Pro Bowl votings. But ultimately, here's what you're looking at. Everson Griffin played his whole 10-year career in Minnesota. Linval Joseph, last 6 years in Minnesota. Rhodes, his whole 7-year career. Trey Waynes, his whole 5-year career. Mackenzie Alexander, his whole 4-year career. So you're not only missing continuity and steady play, you're also missing a lot of leadership. Just kind of blowing that whole defense up is something that's very difficult to get over. Then you know, in order to replace some of those losses, you signed Michael Pierce from Baltimore. You signed him to a big 3-year, $27 million contract. He opted out with, you know, the COVID-19 and everything. And keep in mind, I don't think anything less of anybody who sits out. You know, that there's nothing wrong with that. I want to be very, very, very clear about that right now. There's nothing wrong. I don't think anything less of the Vikings or for Joseph, but for football related purposes in 2020, this is a big deal, because how are the Vikings going to go ahead and recover from losing 5 key players and a big time free agent? It's going to be a struggle. If you think that you could just, I'm going to be honest, if you had to bet against Zimmer having a top 10 defense, go ahead, but it's something you have to worry about. And here's another thing, is that it'll be an adjustment period. There will be some time while that defense kind of gets up to speed, and it could be a chance that this defense is just average. I would be shocked if this defense was below average, but you have to look at all the players they lost, and you have to wonder. Second thing I don't like is Dalvin Cook, and you're going to be like, well, Dalvin Cook. No, I'm going to tell you something. I love Dalvin Cook. He's one of the best players in the National Football League. But the one thing that's been consistent about him his first 3 years in the league is that he's been injured. This year he started and played in 14 games, and it's the most he started in all 3 of his years. He had a great season, 250 carries, 1,135 yards, 13 touchdowns. And then he also was a big part of the passing game, second leading receiver with 53 receptions for 519 yards. No touchdowns, which I found really surprising. But basically what you're looking at is in 14 games, he basically had 105 yards and a touchdown a game. That's what you have. I can argue Dalvin Cook is more important than Kirk Cousins. I can legitimately make that argument. And case in point, look at the playoff game. He had a great game against the Saints in a win. Had a terrible game, really banged up. Missed some. I think he played the whole game if I remember right, but he did not. He wasn't the same player. He obviously wasn't the same player. Part of that was the Niners defense and everything, but. This definitely is something you have to worry about. Your offense revolves around a guy who in his first 3 years in the NFL has not been able to stay healthy, has yet to play a full 16-game season. And without Cook, your offense is not the same. It is completely different. So that scares me. I already talked about how you have a lot of holes on defense. Now you're relying on your offense revolving around a guy who's never been able to stay healthy. Third and final thing, and I've already talked about this, and Mike Zimmer's had tremendous success with playing rookies. It's kind of one of the more unusual things. He's a very old school coach, but the one thing that's different is he'll play rookies and he's had success. But I mean, you need your rookies to be successful. They drafted 15 players for a reason. Now, 6 of them are 6th, 7th round picks that may or may not make the team. But bottom line, when you draft this many players, you need them to be successful. Their 2 first-round picks are day one starters, and they have to be day one starters. Now, I really think that Gladney and Jefferson are going to be successful because they're in the right situation. Jefferson's not the number one guy. Gladney doesn't have to be the number one corner. He may end up being the number one corner. He's a really good player. But anytime you just take a rookie and you throw him in there, you really don't know what you get. Remember Laquan Treadwell. This is a guy that I thought was going to be a superstar, and he's with his 3rd NFL team in what, 4 years? 3 years? Something like that. even though the Vikings have had success playing rookies, not all the time, and not even with first round draft picks, if you get a miss like Laquan Treadwell and either Jefferson or Gladney, you're in a lot of trouble because these guys need to play and they need to play well also. Cleveland and Dantzler, I think, are going to start also. Are all four of these guys going to be hits? One thing about the draft is you don't hit all the time. There's a lot of players. It's really surprising, but really, realistically, if you hit 50% of the time on draft picks, that's actually a great percentage. And then this year, it's got to be higher for the Vikings. So even though I like their draft, maybe the best draft in the NFL, and I do think Jefferson and Gladney are going to be successful, I'm going to say that. Ultimately, with rookies, you just don't know. You really don't know. There's lots of rookies that have come into the NFL that look like surefire, can't miss, and they can't play. And there's lots of players that come in 5th, 6th, 7th round that end up playing who nobody thought could play. Tom Brady, 6th round draft pick. Jamarcus Russell, 1st overall pick in the draft. You ultimately, you never know. So that's why it's a question mark. So just kind of recap the 3 things I don't like about the Minnesota Vikings. Lots of transition on defense, experience, good players, leadership, plus you fill that hole with Joseph and he's opting out. I'm sorry, Michael Pierce. I'm sorry, I got 2 guys mixed up. My mistake. And he opts out. Number 2, your offense revolving around a player who hasn't been able to stay healthy. And then number 3, lots and lots of draft picks, and they need to play. Ultimately, they need to play. Again, Zimmer's had success playing with rookies in the past, but ultimately you never know. So, hey, what did I say? Stick around to the very end while I break down the Vegas over-under. You are in for a treat. So if you stuck around, you're getting some great information. The Vegas over-under is 9, with the over being negative 130, which means that you have to wager $130 to win 100. And the under is plus 110. So a $100 wager will win you $110. Now, I've done a couple videos like this, and when the number's this big and there's this much difference, there's a good chance this is going to jump from 9 to 9.5. And I'm going to keep tabs on this because I honestly wanted to jump up to 9.5 because I love the over. I am very high on the Vikings, despite the rookies. And despite the things I said I didn't like, I'm extremely high on the Minnesota Vikings. So I would take over 9. It's just negative 130 is a big number. So I really don't want to take it. I think that this number could jump from 9 to 9.5. And if it does jump to 9.5, am I going to get a positive? That's a possibility. Or can I get even money? So in the next couple of weeks, I'm circling the Minnesota Vikings because I really liked over. I just don't like negative 130. Now, will action kind of even itself out? Or will this jump to 9.5? If you pay attention to the Dallas Cowboys, it went from 9.5 to 10 because people are betting on the over. I think the same thing here. Lots of people love the Vikings before the offseason. I want to see what that number is going to do. So this is a team I'm paying attention to. But guess what? I told you that had some great news. You get bonus coverage! All right, to win the NFC North, Minnesota and Green Bay are plus 150. They're tied currently, so a $100 wager will win you 150. I have the Minnesota Vikings winning the NFC North. There's a chance they could win it at 10 wins, and of course I haven't done Green Bay yet, but kind of a spoiler alert for what you think I'm going to say about Green Bay. But I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to win the North. I think it's the smartest bet out of any team in the NFC North. Definitely would take the Vikings since they're tied currently at 150. Double dip here. Pay attention to over-under, but take the Vikings to win the North and collect. So listen, I want you to have a great weekend. Monday, I'm breaking down the Houston Texans. So hey, have a great weekend, and I will see you Monday.